Renegade is a spin-off of Westwood's classic real-time strategy game Command & Conquer. In it, you play as a commando named Nick Havoc Parker, no relation to Parker from Red Faction or GameSpot's hardware editor Sam Parker. He's sort of a rough and tough, chauvinistic, real badass action hero type of guy, but he's got all the skills to back up his insubordinate attitude, so his superiors will put up with him just long enough for him to complete the job, take on waves of enemies all by himself, and so on. The game takes place in the same world as the 1995 game. You play as an operative for the GDI, the Global Defense Initiative, which is sort of a futuristic version of the UN with a lot more weapons, and you're up against what's called the Brotherhood of Nod, which is basically a terrorist organization. Renegade includes both a single-player and a multiplayer mode. The single-player mode isn't the best part about the game. It's sort of a 10-hour-long, pretty straightforward, not all that satisfying experience, though it does have some pretty cool parts. When it's at its best, the single-player mode in Renegade really makes you feel like you're on one of the real-time strategy battles in Command & Conquer. You'll see all these transport helicopters flying around and Humvees and tanks and so on, and lots of enemy troops fighting against, other friendly GDI members, and you'll be right there in the thick of it. So you really do get the sense that you're on this battle that's already in progress. It doesn't just completely revolve around you. These moments really are quite great, and especially for fans of Command & Conquer, since they'll immediately recognize all the vehicles and buildings and stuff like that from the original game. Unfortunately, not all of the single-player game is quite like that. Some of it just boils down to, fighting grunts in room after room or hallway after hallway. And the main problem is that the artificial intelligence of the Nod troops is really quite bad. They generally just run at you or will shoot at you from a sniping position, and they'll weave side to side sometimes, but really that's about it. They don't exhibit any kind of team tactics, and they do a lot of stupid things that you wouldn't expect human beings to do. As mentioned, the single player isn't really the game's strong suit, even though the story and the characters are pretty cool. What you'll probably like best about Renegade is its multiplayer mode, which is sort of a reenactment of the skirmishes in Command & Conquer. It's a team-based game where you play for either the GDI or the Nod, and you have these big team versus team battles to destroy the opposing side's base before they destroy yours. In order to do that, you could play as a number of different character classes with different weapons and different specialties. You've got snipers and engineers that can heal units or repair vehicles, and that's right, I mentioned vehicles. You could control, most of the classic Command & Conquer vehicles, from mammoth tanks for the GDI to flame tanks for the Nod, and Humvees and dune buggies and all that kind of stuff, and they all basically act the same way as you might recall from Command & Conquer, and they all have their different strategic uses. Although some character classes are very effective against vehicles, so you can't just use vehicles constantly. It really is a team game that rewards a lot of cooperation between different types of player characters. Multiplayer Renegade is really fast-paced. You respawn right after you die, and there's a lot of back and forth. It's not over until it's over. The sides can mount a comeback, even though whenever you destroy one of the opposing side's structures, it really has a crippling effect on that side. For instance, if you destroy the GDI barracks, then you'll no longer be able to make the advanced character classes, or if you destroy the weapons factory, then vehicles will no longer be available. So the reward for damaging an opponent's base is really quite satisfying, but you won't be able to do that without the help of your comrades. I should really stress that the game makes great use of the source material. If you're a Command & Conquer fan, you'll really appreciate that the vehicles and the units all really look and sound just like they used to in the original game. Although Renegade isn't the best looking shooter out there, Westwood designed the 3D engine especially for it. The graphics do the job pretty well. You can spot different kinds of vehicles and different kinds of characters from far off. The game's environments don't look all that special, but they're also quite serviceable and do look like some of the areas you might remember from Command & Conquer. Similarly, the game sounds about the same as Command & Conquer did back then. It actually reuses a lot of the same sound effects from the game, including those kind of ridiculous high-pitched death screams from the Nod troops. Westwood actually plans to continue to enhance the game after its release. The first scheduled content patch will be to add apparently air vehicles to the game in addition to the ground vehicles that are already in there, so that should be really interesting once it happens, especially since things are interesting the way they are right now, only with infantry and ground vehicles going at it. Renegade isn't the most technically sophisticated shooter out there. You'll find better looking, better sounding shooters available, and in particular the game's single player mode really isn't all that great, especially because of the AI problems. But that said, it's really a lot of fun in multiplayer, and it should especially appeal to people who like the original Command & Conquer a lot. Players like that will find that it really makes great use of the source material. It's very faithful to the original game, and in general just makes a good transition from a real-time strategy game to a shooter, which is something that is no easy feat to pull off.